So economic development for me really means participating in the broader Australian economy. This could be through starting your own, developing your own organisation, your own social venture, also going into employment. So currently we're seeing quite a large gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous employment outcomes, and that is something of focus for the next 10 years that we really need to address in the Closing the Gap targets. Some of the positive outcomes that we saw from the people that were engaging in employment and further education was that they were actually able to contribute back to their own communities, support their own families, go out there, buy cars, buy houses, and all this is contributing to the broader Australian economy, and that's something that we should all be quite proud of. Currently, the average age of Aboriginal population right across Australia is actually 21, so there's actually 50% under the age of 25. And what that actually raises, so I feel it actually raises a great opportunity for existing organisations to start looking at their own governance structures, to ensuring that there is succession planning built in to their organisations. My first point for young people is to actually get involved in your local organisations. Really raise the questions around how can I do more, how can I be more involved in the organisation, and secondly, how can the organisation support me really achieve what I want to do and gain a better knowledge around business and development. I think there's a lot of opportunity at the moment in the Indigenous communities with supporting young people. So in 2012 we saw the most youth engagement that we'd ever seen. There was a lot of focus around constitutional recognition, which then flowed onto kind of policy. So what kind of policy is related to leadership and governance? It's another document that's coming out. But then also that stronger focus on governance specifically around business. So there is a great opportunity now to actually address this, but it falls flat unless it's actually supported by businesses in community or organisations in communities and individual community members. These policies only go so far. These governance structures only go so far if they're not supported. So when you think about business as being a pipeline or a pipeline to developing a stronger business, we're seeing people in our own communities that have wonderful ideas for very small social enterprises. We're seeing that there's some funding available, not very many, and that can often be a huge barrier. And then we're seeing this middle ground where people that have an idea but aren't really sure about what's the first step, and that's where strong education needs to happen. At the other end, we're seeing some amazing organisations that have really stepped up and own the space. So we're looking at our lands councils. You can look at them as a social business, and we can also look at our National Centre for Indigenous Excellence as a type of an organisation that is working for communities in communities, but also encouraging economic participation. So our generation of young people, we're actually a very special moment in time where we are the most educated Indigenous generation of previous generations, that we're most likely to go to university than any other past generation. We're most likely to actually start businesses. So how are these young people engaging in the broader Australian economy, giving back to their communities, but also not losing the fact that they really also need to be able to not only survive but thrive themselves, and the only way to do that really is to ensure that there's some security which comes with having a job, security with earning money, but then there's also security in knowing that you're in a generation that is going to change things. So there's two key targets that COAG kind of named in their Closing the Gap targets and campaign and strategy. They were economic participation, but then also governance and leadership. So pulling out economic participation and leadership, for me, they actually run hand in hand with each other. We can't have strong businesses and strong governance structures if they aren't led well. Leadership for me is actually, I have a different view around leadership. I always feel that it's being able to create space behind you for other people to fill that. So when I look at my own kind of journey, going through the bank, I came through as the third Indigenous trainee to come through the actual program. 5 years later, there was over 500 that had come through. As the Australian Youth Rep to the United Nations, that engaging all different organisations as the first. In 2012, they actually appointed two Indigenous ambassadors with UNICEF Australia. So it's this idea that someone has to kind of take the lead, or someone has to kind of sometimes punch above their weight to kind of lead. There are so many barriers that you have to compete against. So there's often financial barriers, but I always find that the gods favour the brave, and I always find that that people are willing to support people that have a great vision. People are willing to support with people that they can trust and really identify themselves in. That's where it's so important for our people to actually start looking at how we developing our own communities, and what kind of businesses do we want running in our communities, and how do we want them to look and feel. For me, I really feel that going forward, it needs to really have strong partnerships that are really built on mutual respect and mutual understanding. And for me, I really feel that the further development of our communities really needs to be done in partnership with Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. And for that to happen, it all starts at a relationship level. It's so important for us to, not only as Aboriginal people, to share culture. It's also important for us to engage non-Indigenous people in that sharing of culture. It's important for us to really kind of develop a culture around giving and sharing, a culture around participation, but also a culture around ensuring that there's a strong youth voice. Like I said before, majority of our population is under the age of 25. Actually 50% is under the age of 25. So it's actually now is the critical time to, if we want to see changes in 20 years, now's the time to start addressing that.